Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general mid-month reading for the sign of Aries, Sun, Moon and Ascendant for the month of October. It's going to be shorter than the main monthly readings because it just covers that 2-week period from the 15th to the 31st of October. And I'm going to try and not to pull any clarifiers to keep this nice and short. So I'm switching it up a little bit for this month. I don't know why, but I feel inclined to do so, so I'm going to roll with it. Usually I pull 3 cards for your current energy, 3 cards for what's coming towards you, and then 3 cards of advice. That middle row, we're going to change that. Because I feel at this point like what's coming towards you is less important than what it is that you're dealing with right now. So we're going to pull the 3 cards for your current energy, and then this third line we're going to make the point of introspection. Right? What is it about your current energy that you are supposed to be noticing? What is it that you are supposed to be working with at this point? This kind of aligns much more with how I use the tarot personally, and I think it's kind of more useful at this point. And then we'll go to advice at the end, and the advice will be how to best use what's coming up at the point of introspection, right? I hope that makes sense. Hopefully, if it doesn't, it will do by the time I've got cards on the table. So we're going for the Hush Tarot today. Like I said, I'm going to try really hard not to pull any clarifiers, but I am open to breaking my own rule if necessary. So let's have 3 cards for Aries current energy, please. October. First card we have is the Chariot. That's the card of Cancer in the Major Arcana. Current energy. I have the King of Swords. Shit. To put out my own candles. And the last card is the Star. It's interesting. I've been doing a lot of work with the Star. I went on a tarot conference this weekend, and the theme of the whole conference was the Star, because it was the 17th year that it had been running. At the bottom of the deck, we've got the Strength card, followed by the Hermit. There's a shift going on in you here, Aries. I can feel it. We've got 2 cards here that deal very strongly with will for me. And even actually taking the Strength card in, which is the card of Leo, there's a sense of will about that too. The Chariot card for me is a card of the self. It's about determination. It's about autonomy. And it's about duality and balance. It's about holding all things in alignment so you can move forwards victoriously. It is also, for me, a card of shadow work, and maybe you are undergoing some shadow work at the moment. Some of you will be, consciously deciding to do that. Some of you may just be working through some stuff at the moment and not even realizing that that's what you're doing, but it is, right? But the King of Swords and the Chariot, the Chariot, both speak to me about will, determination, and actually a reconciliation between things. I'll explain this a little further. So, the Star card of connection, card of balance, card of vulnerability, but a card of reconciliation, right? It's reconciling the land and the water, the dry and the wet, the painful and the joyful. It's another point of integration, just as the Chariot card is here. And we've got this King of Swords, thinking about, who speaks clearly, about speaking clearly, about understanding things clearly. And it feels like you have got some insight into your inner workings this month. Maybe you've had some stuff going on. It feels like there's been a trigger that's been pushed with you. And it's kind of making you face things that you hadn't thought actually even needed facing. Like you didn't know that they were there, but they are there. And so what you're doing is working through these things. At the bottom of this Chariot card here, we've got little tin soldiers, look, and they're kind of sinking in the water. More soldiers would be under the purview of the king, that he would be directing them. They look like they're sinking. I think this is supposed to be land, but it looks like water to me as I'm talking to you here. It feels like there are emotions that have been surfacing for you this month, Aries, and you're seeing things now in a way that you didn't before. It's interesting. I've also got this star here, right on the Chariot card, right? The links are really, really strong between this card here. And there's a little bird on this star card. Wow. And he's holding a bit of a banner that says, "A hunting we will go," right, on there. But notice what he stood on. He stood on a skull, and the skull has got some sort of crown, some sort of headdress on, right? This feels like a pulling together of you, Aries, because you are facing difficult things that you didn't even realise were there. Like I said, I feel like you've been triggered to look at these things now, and you're getting some insight that you never had before, and there is growth here happening for you. Right? The Hermit card was underneath there too. It's Leo and Virgo, respectively. But it's like the insight that you're getting into your own inner workings is actually prompting some sort of big period of growth for you. How fascinating. Right, let's have a look. The second line then will be the point of introspection, you know, what it is that you're supposed to be learning at this point that you're at right now. Whoa, a whole heap of cards come flying out here. What have we got? We've got the Hermit again. We've got the King of Cups. We've got the Lovers. And we've got the Eight of Swords with the Seven of Cups. Now, I only wanted 3 cards here. Right? That was what I was aiming for. I have actually got 5. And I'm kind of going to take them and I'm going to read them all in one big lump because I do feel like that they're all relevant. There are ways in which you have been limiting yourself. You have been holding yourself back. And truly you are starting to see how far. In every direction that has been operable. You know, as a cardinal fire sign, you pride yourself on being first. Or maybe you don't pride yourself on it. Maybe it's just a thing that happens, right? You just sort of end up being in charge of things. You just sort of end up, you know, going down that road that has not been travelled by anyone before. But there has been something that has limited you in some way, and it's up here for sure, right? And some of it, we've got this like Seven of Cups here, similar depiction of a woman on the back of a horse here, right? What it is that's been limiting you, what it is that has been stopping you from being able to be victorious in the way that you wanted, actually has its seat in an emotional reaction that you have inside to something. And I don't think it's to anything external. I think it's something that's going on inside. But whatever your current energy is now, whatever that trigger was for you, these things that have come up in your emotions to deal with have been in the background, kind of holding the reins back a little bit here. Your ability to uncover those at this point, and I have to say the King of Cups was next there, next to the Seven of Cups. We could say it's like a maturation of energy, right? And that would be entirely appropriate with the King of Cups. And it's always that step up, it's that level up. But it feels like it's slightly sideways of that for me. You know, this King of Cups looks, he's looking in a direction, but he looks like he's looking without seeing at the moment because the work is very much going on inside. Look at that. There. If you notice, the wine in his glass is kind of dripping up as well. And it feels like it's your will and your intent, you know. There's an assumption that we all hold as humans that, you know, people go through shitty things and then they have kind of, you know, fairly standard responses to those, and that we then, in some way or another, we kind of excuse everything that comes thereafter, you know, and we definitely do it with ourselves, you know, and we put labels on ourselves. So, you know, we are, I don't know, say, for example, a survivor of sexual abuse, you know, particularly if that's like childhood sexual abuse, something like that. And in some ways, then, moving forwards, sometimes we can trap ourselves within a label, right? A label that ended up being put on us through no fault of our own, you know? Now that's just an example, and this could have this could manifest in all sorts of different forms, but it feels like there's something that's risen to the surface with you, and it's a way in which you have defined yourself for a long time that you now see, rather than being something, you know, clear and I'm trying to think of the best way to describe what it is that I'm feeling here. There's a breaking out of a box here, Aries. That's what it feels like. There's some sort of label that was put on you, possibly by you, but maybe by society later. You know, as you've come to work through this stuff, you've gone, right, okay, this is a thing. I am one of these people. Where you're starting to see how that has limited you. It's limited your thinking. It's limited something about what it is that you can achieve, and it's felt a little bit like a stain on you, right? And what I'm feeling from this here is you're actually not wanting to have that label be anywhere near you anymore, right? Now, I brought up, you know, childhood sexual abuse because it's a big one, and it's a relevant one, but it could be being the child of a narcissistic parent, right? That creates in us a whole, you know, a raft of reactions that then, as we grow older, we kind of work through, you know. But it's still there. It's still a label. We were like this because we were children of narcissistic parents, but look, I've done all of this work, and now, even though I'm a child of a narcissistic parent, I have done this, right? That label of being the child of a narcissistic parent, which was no fault of yours, right, has in some way stopped you progressing further out. And I see you kicking it away, because we've got this Hermit card here. There's that deep introspection about what this is and what this means to you, and how it dictates and has dictated how you have moved out in the world. Now, for some of you, it will have been the source of you know, a really deep trigger to do the work. And in some ways, you know, you kind of detach from the situation. You see, right, this situation that I was in has caused me down the line to do a lot more work than I might have done if I had not been in that situation. And whilst it should never have happened, it did. And I am where I am now. I feel you're growing beyond that though, Aries. This is really, really strong, because the final card then that we've got in here is the Lovers, and that is the card of a choice. Now, more specifically for me, it's a card of manifestation, because it's about the act of making the choices. And for me, it feels like they are more fully informed now for you than they have ever been before, because of this insight, because of this new understanding that you have of something, and because of the way that you're choosing to break out and away from whatever that is, even if it was, you know, you who had decided that this was the box that you were going to live in, right? I see you kicking the boxes. This has been, I mean, we're in Mercury retrograde now, and it's in Scorpio too. So, I mean, the stuff that's going to be coming to the surface during this 2-week period is probably going to be pretty intense. I mean, it's almost certain to be intense with Scorpio. We've actually even got Scorpio depicted here with the King of Cups. But what I really like about this Lovers card is that it's got a peacock across the top. You don't usually see that. Peacocks speak about ancient wisdom up here, and you see how it's overarching the top. Maybe you're getting an insight into how, you know, whatever box you've kept yourself in for a while has had an effect on your relationships. I don't actually generally run to relationships when I see the Lover's card. For me, it is about stepping up and making fully informed choices, because you've got all of the information. This month, it feels like that information is coming to you about yourself, to yourself. And I feel not exactly rejection of it, but sort of, this isn't relevant now. Like the lens through which I've been seeing the world, of which this box is part, because I've been looking out of this box, it's not having as much relevance now as it did, because I've grown beyond it. It's staggering. Wow. Let's get some advice for Aries, please. Five of Cups in reverse. Advice for Aries, please. Oh. We've got, I'm not going to take these because they didn't jump, but I'll just tell you what there is. There is the Empress, the Ten of Pentacles, and the Page of Swords. And that, for some of you, not all because they didn't jump, but I'm going to just tell you what I see. We've got relationships with the mother being an issue, followed by the Ten of Pentacles, right? That's family, that's security, that's stability. Perhaps, for those of you who are parents, it's how the relationship with your mother feeds into your own relationship with your children as a mother, right? How it dictates how you behave. For some of you, you may choose to do the polar opposite to whatever your mother did, because that was a cause of difficulty. And that is a form of processing what happened to you in some ways. I do think it's quite cathartic in some ways, having children. It can be very difficult as your children get older and you kind of start to see how you were treated as opposed to how you treat your children. Sometimes it can cause those feelings to kind of come to the surface again, and just you feel the hurt all over again, because you see it now even more clearly as to how unjust that was and how uncaring that was. But with this Page of Swords here, I do feel like there's a liberation of your thinking related to it coming. It's a new way of seeing it. And in some ways that is going to be a detachment from your own childhood, in order that you may be more fully present in your children's, if that makes sense, you know. I hope this makes sense to someone. Anyway, some advice for Aries, please. Well, there we go. We've got the two. We've got the Page of Wands and the Five of Swords. Interesting. Eight of Swords at the bottom of the deck, followed by the Page of Pentacles. The Page of Pentacles is a new start. It's seeing things differently. This page here, she's lifted the mask. I don't know if you can really see that, but she's kind of pushed it away from her eyes. She is seeing things. She is doing things in a different way to the way that she always has done before. And with the Eight of Swords, that limitation, those limitations are being lifted and moved away. So Five of Cups in reverse. I really, really like this, because it doesn't just speak to, you know, kind of moving out of this, but it's a healing, certainly. But it's a stabilizing motion. Like I always say, I think the most stabilizing thing that you can do to a five is to flip it upside down so it's reversed, right? An inherently unstable card will by definition become stable when it's in the reverse. And here we've got these flowers that have kind of, they're coming up from the deep. I'm always banging on about how a lot of people's gold is actually in their shadow. It's stuff that they've rejected about themselves, and this feels like an awakening of sorts for you, Aries, you know, with the Chariot and the Star. reconciliation and healing of that which has sprung up from the deep and kind of surprised you a little bit this month. In terms of advice, it genuinely is to continue down this road that you have started. Right? You've done the hard bit already, actually. What is now coming to the surface, and the hard bit was recognizing that this stuff was there in the first place, because that can be really, really difficult. What's happening now is a processing of that, and ultimately a releasing of that. Five of Cups. Seven of Pentacles. Yeah. See, there are ways in which you have actually been kind of pretty unhappy. And I don't think most of you have even recognised it. I think that you got very used to stuffing it down or not paying attention. And there's a sense of you cooperating with yourself now. Like I said, fully informed about you and your motivations, why you do the things that you do, and what it is that you can do when you finally emerge from this state that you're in, where you realise the limitations that you put on yourself. The Page of Wands is a card that I feel a childish excitement off this card more than any of the other pages. Right? There's a rising sense of adventure and liberation that I feel when I see the Page of Wands. I always talk about this frisson, it's like butterflies in the stomach. Now, you know, I don't think necessarily that it's because you're planning to go travelling or anything like that, but it's kind of like the precursor to movement. It's a precursor to you actually fully showing up in the world in a chariot-like way. And you kind of see it like it's emerging from the rubble of what is you, because some stuff's come down. Like, you know, we've got all of this kind of like broken stuff here, and here you are marching out as a child, marching out. Now this is your inner child. This is the one that you kind of reconnecting with, I feel, actually, during this time. The one that wasn't parented properly, or was over-parented, or, you know, overindulged, however it works for you. You know, you can have the best parents in the world and they'll still fuck you up in some way or another, right? Completely unintentional, obviously, but it still gives issues to resolve. And it's almost like you kind of frog marched into yourself and grabbed this inner child and been like, right, come on. And this child's ready. It's like, yeah, let's go. Five of Swords. Final card of advice is the Five of Swords, clarified by the Four of Wands in reverse. Now the Five of Swords for me, like I said, fives, inherently unstable. It's about communication, and often this is about communication with other people. Now the focus of this reading is very much about you, very much about what's going on internally. So this feels very strongly to me like this is your thought processes, your thought patterns, it's how you talk to yourself. And the Four of Wands is my card of home, right? It's like, recognize where your thought patterns have been slightly off in some way, right? Maybe, and this is just for some of you, and this is going to sound a little bit harsh, and I really hope that it doesn't, that you understand the love that's coming from behind this. You know, maybe the way that you deal with your own children is, like I said before, a way of kind of fixing the relationship that you had with your own parents, right? But that's kind of making that relationship with your children about you and a little less about them. Now it's coming from a loving place, and it's coming from this urge not to have your child, the most precious thing in the world, experience what you did. But it's still about you. you know, which means that you are still hanging on to what happened before. This month, your advice is to kind of consider if that might be the case. Now, if you don't have kids and you don't recognize that characterization, maybe it's how you deal with people generally. You'll have to take it as it resonates to you. But there's some deep work for you this month, Aries. It's going to be 100% worth it as well. I can tell you that for a fact. Yeah. I've just pulled a card from the compass cards here. And the question is, it's do, which is wands. What can the cards ask you that will actually move you forwards? Well, I want to kind of alter that slightly and ask you what you could ask yourself that would move you forwards, you know? And maybe it's the question that I just asked. Maybe it's some variation of that. Have a think about it. Right, I'm going to leave it there, Aries. I hope you found something helpful here for you. If you did, feel free to subscribe, like the video, whatever. But yeah, it's going to be a challenging month, but it's worth it. All right, know that I love you all very much. I'll see you soon.